Alright there, happy Halloween or happy Samhain. I just thought today what I'd do with it being Halloween is I'd read you a story. It's a local spooky story and it's about one of the areas where I've been walking quite a bit, which is Gallows Cloth. So today, sit down, get yourself a drink and I'll read you the legend of Gallows Cloth. Near Mottram, on the verge of the moors overlooking what is now the high road to Staley Bridge, is a spot known as Gallows Cloth, which, as its name implies, was in feudal times the scene of gibbeting of malefactors. Here in the good old days was reared the gallows, whereupon the criminal was first hanged by the neck until he was dead, and from which his body was afterwards suspended in chains until the weather and the birds had picked all the flesh away and nothing remained but a few bones, a grim reminder of the power of the law and the folly and risk of departing from the paths of virtue. In the days when gibbeting was fashionable, it behoved almost every petty township to possess its own gallows, and there was far too great a demand for the service of rope and hangmen to permit only a few recognised places of execution and one common hangman, as it was a custom at the present time. Not that people were very much worse than they are now, but the extreme punishment of the law was meted out for what is now considered the minor crimes of sheep and cattle stealing, poaching, highway robbery, housebreaking with violence and such like offences. The sight of a dead man dangling between earth and sky was of far too common a nature to cause surprise, even so late as the early decades of the 19th century. Wild and lonesome as the Gallows Cloth is at the present day, it was much bleaker and a much more awesome place in the days when the gibbet was standing there. Then it was considered as a place accursed and was said to be haunted by the ghosts of all the dead men who had been strangled there. Even in the daylight, folk gave the spot a wide berth, and at night when the winds moaned down the gullies from the hills and swayed the dead men to and fro, and caused the chains to clank and rattle, then indeed the traveller kept as far off the route as he could permit, and hurried past with a beating heart, face blanched with fear. Nor was that all the terror. Witches were said to infest the place at certain seasons, and in the darkness to hold converse with the ghosts of malefactors, from whom they learned how to extract deeds of darkness successfully. Men who were forced to pass that way at these seasons had seen from distance the crouched forms of the old hags, and had even heard their crooning voices and fiendish laughter. Many a timid dame added a petition to her prayers that Providence would accord her nor her belongings to her spectral protection from the witches who danced and plotted and sang hell song round the gibbet at Gallows Cloth. One day sometime during the 17th century, a man was caught stealing a deer in Londondale. He was hanged at Gallows Cloth and one of his hands cut off by the steward, despite the desperate pleas for clemency to the steward from his wife. During the execution and afterwards she stood sobbing by the gallows, clutching her baby which died during the widow's vigil. She was driven half mad. Shortly after the hanging, a witch appeared intent on robbing the body of its fat and to sever one of the hands to make into a spell known as the Hand of Glory. The two struck up a friendship and hatched a plan of revenge on the steward. A few days later, the steward's newborn baby soon disappeared. Shortly afterwards, the body of the baby was found in the local woods, its face eaten off by rats. However, the steward's baby had been stolen by the widow and the witch, and the body of the widow's child had been found. The steward, believing the child dead, became even more tyrannical in his rule of Londondale. The child was brought up by the widow in ignorance of his true parentage. When he was old and strong enough, he became an outlaw and on many occasions stole property from the steward. Finally, he was betrayed by the witch to the steward, who arrested and hanged the young man. As he swung on the gallows, the widow and the witch stood by, laughing uncontrollably. Afterwards they told the steward that it was his own son that he had hung. The steward dropped down dead on the spot with horror, whereupon the young woman poisoned herself and the witch vanished. Throughout most of its history, the lordship of Londondale has been run by stewards, since the lords were usually rich landowners from central Cheshire or Yorkshire. The power of the Lord of Londondale and his steward were extensive and are recorded in 2 grants from the 12th century. These powers included justice over thieves who were caught in the territory by his own men, with fire and water and combat. So I hope you enjoyed today's story. Catch you on the next one. Bye.